hundreds of years, the U.S. Navy has had the mission of protecting and defending our country and its allies. I'm Jenny Robinson. My guest, Dr. Christine Johnson, has been involved with some other aspects of the Navy. She's here today to tell us about a mission called Operation Unified Response, as well as the Navy's Pacific Partnership. Captain Johnson is an associate professor of pediatrics at the Naval Hospital here in San Diego. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you.
So nice to have you here. Now, you were working at the hospital in Balboa Park, having a pretty regular job, and all of a sudden you had the, opportunity to volunteer to go on a mission called Operation Unified Response.
Correct.
So tell us what that was like. All of a sudden you have this opportunity and you have a family.
So I think we can all remember that there was a devastating earthquake in Haiti in January of 2010. Just a few days after that, I was home and I got a call from my department head asking me if I wanted to volunteer to be a part of a medical relief mission.
As a pediatric doctor.
As a pediatrician. I spent just a few minutes. My husband happened to be home at the time talking with him, and we decided that this seemed like the perfect opportunity for me to use my skill set to do something really good. So just a few minutes later, I was at elementary school with my two oldest girls, listening to 400 children say the Pledge of Allegiance and sing, "This land is your land, this land is my land," and really sort of feeling like this was the right decision. And so that was a Friday, and we left. A group of about 90 of us left on Monday to fly towards Haiti.
So you didn't really have anything you had to prepare for, but you had to probably do some logistics with your childcare and your schools and so forth.
My husband had just retired from the Navy after 22 years the summer before, knowing that it was likely that I would get called to do something operational. So it was a perfect time for us, but obviously the logistics of having 3 little girls, we certainly had to make some plans, but he did an amazing job while I was gone, and the community completely stepped up to help, and that was amazing to know that they were, cared for while I was gone on the Operation Unified Response.
Sure. Well, I guess the military family is a huge
Absolutely.
family. Yes.
Absolutely.
So what are the logistics of this trip? Then you have a lot of support. You have military personnel support and you have other support. Can you talk about the logistics of that?
Well, it was interesting because in the days following the earthquake, there was a tremendous amount of support, multinational support. But logistically, it was a little bit difficult because the earthquake had really devastated the port as well as the airport. So the Navy in particular did a lot of work early on in helping to rebuild structures so that sort of vital deliveries of goods and personnel could come into the country. For the specific group that I was involved in, we were a group of about 90 medical personnel from the West Coast, Navy Medicine West, from all different bases, and we came together and we all flew to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and then we individually in smaller groups made our way in whatever way we could, so helicopters that were heading towards the Bay of Haiti. So we arrived in little groups to the USS Baton, which is one of the large deck amphibious ships for the Navy, and we immediately augmented their medical staff and immediately began seeing casualties from the earthquake.
So they already had a medical staff on board, and then all these new people that didn't know each other are meeting for the first time and having to coordinate a disaster relief. And so how does that happen? I'm sure the Navy's good at this, but for people that don't know it, like myself, tell us how that logistically works.
So for many of us, it was our first time in that sort of a setting and operationally, but obviously we all knew our own areas of expertise. So pretty quickly, we decided where each individual would serve. So the trauma surgeon was in the intensive care unit doing triage. The pediatrician, I was the sole pediatrician for that part of the mission. I would clearly be dealing with all of the pediatric patients. So within even a couple of hours, individuals started to figure out where the best place would be to utilize their skill set.
But you have a lot of personalities.
Absolutely. So that's an issue into
Yeah,
itself. But I think we were all passionate about what we were doing there. Each of us, for the majority, we had the opportunity to also go ashore on several occasions and try and identify the individuals that would be best served by what we were able to do on the Bataan, which has a fairly robust medical capability, about 15 ICU beds, a 40-bed ward, 4 operating rooms that were fully functional. So the majority of the mission at that point was providing sort of surgical care for injuries related to the earthquake, orthopedic traumas, and at that point, about a week after the earthquake, a lot of wound infections and things like that.
So you had someone, obviously, a lot of other people from other countries of the world that were dealing with the rebuilding, the physical rebuilding of the towns, and you were dealing with the medical issues on the Bataan. And when you went ashore, you had visits to small villages, or did you mainly stay in the cities?
So the earthquake mostly was centered right in Port-au-Prince, and you're absolutely right. There were a lot of assets there from countries all over the world, militaries, non-governmental organizations. So each sort of group sort of had to find their niche. The Bataan, we would travel ashore either by helicopter or by LCAC, which is a large hovercraft that pulls out of the back of the ship. And we actually developed a partnership with Lifeline Christian Mission, which happened to be right outside the city of Port-au-Prince. And they've been there for 30 years, but it was a great staging point for us to be able to triage individuals who knew the mission, felt comfortable coming to the mission. So we would bring our medical personnel there and again triage those individuals who would be best served by coming back to the ship.
So a lot of this was just done one-to-one, one person to one person.
Absolutely.
And were there positive things that happened while you were there?
Absolutely. You know, these experiences have been highlights for my career. My deployment to Haiti was the first real time that I had the opportunity to be in the operational setting. For me, one of the real positive stories, we had several children who actually ended up on the ship unaccompanied. They had no family members with them. And in the first couple of days of the response, it was a little chaotic, so I could clearly see how that would happen. The families just wanted their children to be cared for. But trying to reunite those children with family members ashore took the better part of 3 or 4 weeks for me. But so those kids were so resilient. You know, that's the same age as my own children, and they were happy and they were thankful. And I felt it was really my duty to try and get them back with their families.
So they were on the ship for 4 weeks?
Pretty much.
Oh my gosh.
They came at the onset and were there almost until we left. But the good news is we were able to find family members through working with our legal staff, and we had some public health folks who were on the ship with us from the CDC, and they had connections with the Ministry of Health and UNICEF, and actually it ended up that we had Marines just pretty much going door to door in big tent cities with pictures of these kids trying to find their family members.
So you did whatever it took.
Absolutely, and that was incredibly positive to sort of hand over this little boy to his father in one of the last days we were there.
So what countries are involved? Probably the ones that you, well, tell us what countries that you remember were involved.
You know, I specifically spent most of my time with the U.S. folks, but there were clearly ships from many countries and many hospitals on the ground. I mean, Israel set up a hospital, I remember. But lots of different assets, both on the ground and floating in the Bay of Haiti. But the Navy really took ownership of that and tracking all of the movement of those ships and ensuring their safety was really the role of the Navy,
Sure.
and they did that so well.
Sure. What an experience. Your family back home, you were able to communicate very rarely, but
Really.
good. But by cell phone sometimes?
Some folks had cell phones. The majority was via email. We had 1 or 2 computers for 100 of us. So you can, there wasn't that much communication,
Right.
but I certainly knew that they were doing fine and they were in good hands.
Yes,
and,
absolutely. That's
and,
good.
Yeah.
That's good. So I want to talk now about the Pacific Partnership because I know that's something that means a lot to you, and it was started as a result of a similar situation from the tsunami in 2004. Tell us what that is.
So right after the tsunami, the aircraft carrier Lincoln was one of the first assets to arrive on the scene and was able to provide a lot of assistance logistically, engineering water supply, but also medical. And after that, the Mercy did go to that area and
San
stayed.
Diego, the San Diego ship.
The San Diego hospital ship did deploy to that area and did stay for several months to continue to provide ongoing medical assistance. So after that, the Navy has developed these planned humanitarian assistance missions to that part of the world, to Southeast Asia and Oceania. And basically the premise is that we want to be able to partner with the nations in that part of the world, with the host nations that we visit, and we want to be able to work together so that in the event of another natural disaster or man-made event, we can respond. And we know that logistically we can work together. So the Pacific Partnership missions have gone out each year to that part of the world, providing humanitarian assistance.
Well, it just makes sense, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
But it does make the Navy really look so great. It's not always about defense and bullets and guns. So why are the coastal areas of the world so important?
So if you think about it, 90% of the commerce of the world is by sea. The vast majority of folks who live in this world live within several hundred miles of a coast. So it really is important that we have a forward presence, that we understand maritime security. It's sort of a deterrence factor for the Navy that we're present on the seas, that we show some dominance, but that we also learn to work with all of the countries so that, again, in the event that we need to respond to something, we have a familiarization and we know that we can work with those individuals.
Right.
So,
because the logistics are huge when you're dealing with
Absolutely.
the world, the whole world's Navy. And so every area that you go to, I would assume, would have a different logistic. You'd have people with different languages, you have different customs. And so how do you train people to be prepared for that?
So these missions are planned for years, and there's specific criteria that the Navy looks at for where the need is highest for medical, dental, engineering support in these countries. And then an advance team of personnel months before the mission even embarks, they go to these places, they identify the infrastructure, they look at what the need is, they meet with all of the partner nations that work on the missions as well. So it truly is a Pacific partnership. We work very closely with the Australians and Japanese, but yet we also have partners from Malaysia and Timor and all sorts of different countries around the world. So the advance team really sets up where exactly the mission will go. And part of that is also working with individuals who are already there, non-governmental organizations, Peace Corps individuals, to assist with those missions. So they often will provide some translators and help us set up the infrastructure when we're going to build a medical site for a day or 2 or 3.
And I would assume that would be a huge assistance. I mean, having a
Absolutely.
liaison that already knows the people. So the ships maneuver, not just one ship, like the one you were on, but lots of ships are maneuvering at any one point in time?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So for the specific missions, generally there's one platform, either the hospital ship, the Mercy, or one of the large deck amphibious ships that the Navy has. But we've also, in recent years, really involved partner nation, not only their personnel, but their assets. So on Pacific Partnership 2011, which was the mission I was a part of, for several of the countries we visited, we had the New Zealand ship, the Canterbury was with us. We had 2 Australian smaller ships, LCHs, that helped to transport our medical teams around to different sites. We had a French helicopter as part of the mission for a period of time. So the logistics is, it's quite intense to plan this, but it seems to all come together fairly seamlessly in the end. Pacific Partnership is a planned humanitarian mission. The ships that go have some medical infrastructure, but generally the majority of the mission is individuals from the ship ashore.
Okay.
And one of the big focus areas is working with the host nation individuals, specifically from the medical standpoint, working side by side with their doctors and their nurses within their facilities. You know, we don't want to bring American medicine. We want to help them use what they have so that it's more sustainable.
That's a good point.
So we want to do a lot of education, a lot of training. We were able to do some teaching on neonatal resuscitation and work with their nurse midwives to hopefully provide something that's long-lasting and sustainable. You know, we do often, as part of those missions, have big MedCap sites or civil assistance sites where we have a lineup of individuals who are seeking medical attention. So that's part of the mission as well. And we look to refer back to what resources the host nation already has. So identify those individuals who really need a higher level of medical care and hopefully get them linked back within their own country.
Very good. Yes, because teaching them with the primitive kinds of resources that they have, teaching them how to use them to their best ability is the goal, obviously. So the humanitarian effort also includes entertaining the people and having fun with the people. And so what kinds of things have you seen done?
Yeah, that was a really fun part of the mission. And not only are we going to these places to provide medical and dental and public health and optometry care, but we're really trying to work with them, become friendly with them, and part of that is a whole sort of public affairs piece of the mission. The band was a huge part of that, and they would put on big shows. They would come to the different sites, both the medical team, they would often be just outside the hospital setting and playing great music for the people who are waiting to see us. They would go to the soccer games where teams from the ship would play against local teams. So it really was to try and get to know the people better, to understand their culture, to work with them and to win the hearts and minds so that they knew that the Americans were there to try and give back, to try and do something good for them.
Yes, that it would be very fun to be involved with that. And is there someone in charge of that on the ship, that's their job?
Yes, so the band folks, that is their specific job, is that they go as the Navy band, and it's amazing how many different sort of things they can do.
Same band?
The same
They
band.
can
play all different
music?
kinds of music, yes. They would learn the national anthem for each country,
that's good. Oh,
and they
that's
would
very
often
good.
play at an opening or a closing ceremony, so that was great. But a huge part of that was the public affairs team sort of managing all of those events, along with the medical missions and the engineering missions, building school buildings and working on water treatment facilities. But the public affairs folks really did manage that.
Well, that would be huge. The people that are, entertaining, and the pictures that I saw online were of receiving gifts from the people in return.
Yes.
Did you have any experiences of that?
Yes, in all of the places we visited, they were very appreciative and very grateful. In Tonga, for instance, that was our first island that we visited. One of the first missions I was involved in were 2 small boats, little rigid hull inflatable boats that seat 20 people, and we drove to a more remote island. And they knew we were coming, and on the second day they had prepared this enormous feast for us.
Wow.
Of all of the local foods. So that was just so heartwarming, because we knew they had spent a lot of time making all of those lovely foods. But at all of the places, at closing ceremonies, there was a lot of gift giving, and wonderful that they just wanted to share their local customs. I received grass skirts in Papua New Guinea from some of the kids who came to see me, so very touching.
Nice. And also they wanted to show their appreciation.
Absolutely.
That is great. So would you do this again?
Yes. Yeah. It was hard on my family.
Yeah.
Both times I went away. The Pacific Partnership mission was a little longer, was 5 months. But they have grown stronger because of it. They're more resilient, and they understand that sometimes they have to share mommy with the rest of the world, and I think that's made them stronger. So if the right mission comes along, and I don't have another pediatrician volunteer, I would absolutely volunteer again.
Yeah, well, you told me earlier that you have been asked to do another one, so there's one leaving very, very soon.
So they're in the midst of planning the 2014 mission, which will go to similar locations, and will actually partner with a Japanese ship that the team will spend a substantial amount of time on. So right now we're in the midst of sort of planning that. There are several folks at the hospital who are in leadership positions, and I'm sure that mission is going to be spectacular.
And they're not all Navy that go on these missions.
So on the ships, we have Navy, Army, Air Force personnel, and then a lot of volunteers from some of the non-governmental organizations. One of the big ones is Project Hope and World Vets. We send veterinarians to care for the animals. So it really is a spectacular chance and opportunity for civilians to not only be involved in these humanitarian missions, but also to spend some time aboard a Navy ship to understand the logistics of that. So really is an adventure for lots of folks.
Oh, absolutely. So how young can you volunteer for this?
I think it depends on which organization you're going through. We had several college students who were part of a pre-dental society through UCSD, so they had a blast. And many of them were about to enter dental school, and they got a tremendous amount of experience in these locations doing dental work right next to dentists from around the world.
Absolutely, and maybe they would join the Navy then.
Absolutely. Yeah, now they have a whole new perspective on what it means to wear the uniform.
Right, right. There's a lot of aspects to the Navy that we don't know about. So you have a little bit of time left. I want you to just share with us any final thoughts you have about your experience.
Well, I thank you so much for this opportunity to share some of my experiences both on Operation Unified Response and Pacific Partnership. I've had some tremendous opportunities during my now almost 20-year career in uniform, and these were certainly highlights for me. I think after practicing as a general pediatrician and an educator in multiple settings, it was really a phenomenal experience for me to be able to have some operational time to really see the Navy do what it's meant to do, to understand the tremendous efforts it takes to run a mission like this, but also to just run a ship and to care for the people on board. So I have a new understanding of the capacity and the capability of the Navy, as you mentioned, not only as a war-fighting entity, but in all the myriad of things we're able to do around the world with disaster response and relief and humanitarian assistance. So thank you for allowing me to share my personal perspective on these global initiatives.
We really appreciate you coming today because I think a lot of people learned something they didn't know before. So thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome.